Throughout the month of January, the New York Rangers have played some really good hockey and have looked like a much better team than what we saw from them earlier on this season, where this team was not looking like anything close to a playoff caliber team and was actually playing like one of the literal worst teams in the entire NHL. But now, since the start of January, they obviously, like I said, turned things around, have looked a lot better since then. But over the last two games now, we have seen the New York Rangers lose both of them. One in a 5-4 loss to the Avalanche, and then a 4-0 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. And I don't think these two games are necessarily a kind of reflection on everything here, and they're going to kind of show what's going to happen going forward, and the Rangers are going to suck for the rest of the season. But I think you definitely have to kind of wonder, what is this team actually going to be for the rest of the season? Because we have seen this team have a ton of different kind of ups and downs. Right at the beginning of this NHL season in the month of October, we saw this team go 6-1 in 9 games played, having 13 points there. That's not bad at all for a team. And then you take a look in November, they go 7-7, which is obviously not great. And then they have that terrible 3-10 December month, which was just horrible. And then obviously in January, we have seen some pretty good plays. But they have lost the last 2 games now, and it was a not great, 4-0 loss against the Canes there. But I just think, with the ups and downs that this team has had, and obviously they're not as low as the lowest low, and they're not as high as the highest high or whatever. But I just think that with the way this team has kind of played so far this season, with the inconsistencies that we have seen and obviously the deficiencies that we know this team has had for quite a few seasons now. I mean, it's not like this is the first season where we've seen this team kind of struggle with, certain areas of the game. I mean, obviously toughness has been a big kind of deficiency for this squad for a long time now. It's not just this season, it's not just last season. It's been multiple seasons now where we've been saying and kind of talking as fans, this team needs to get tougher, and we've still seen these issues. So I think there are a ton of different issues still on this team that need to be fixed if this team truly wants to be a real kind of cup contender. And obviously we saw a couple really great runs. I mean, that, Eastern Conference final run against Tampa there, we lost in game 6 there in the Eastern Conference finals, and then the one against Florida there, same thing. In game 6, those were fun. Those were a ton of fun to watch. The one I covered, the Florida one there, that was a ton of fun. But obviously, the ultimate end goal is to win that cup. And with the way this team is built right now, and with the way those teams are built in the past, they weren't really built to truly, be able to be that real kind of cup contender, because this team had to rely on their goaltender and Igor Shesterkin to really kind of carry them along and bring them, to the Eastern Conference Finals. And in both those appearances there, Igor was the main guy, the MVP, to really kind of carry this team along. So I think this team really needs to kind of reshape this roster and really do a big fix-up, hopefully this offseason, to where we see some new faces come in, and we've already seen a couple. I mean, Will Borgen's been a new guy there, Hovakinainen. They've been solid so far. I mean, obviously, Borgen got that pretty decent contract extension for himself, so he got paid pretty good there. Is it going to be good for the Rangers? We'll have to wait and see, but there's a new face in there on the back end to hopefully help kind of fix things there from, a liability like Jacob Trouba we had earlier this season in the past. So there have been some moves so far. I think this team is definitely, not really that close to winning a cup, especially not this season. I mean, there's no real way this team can build a good enough squad to really win a cup unless Igor just went absolutely berserk and literally stopped pretty much every single puck that was shot at him. So really and truly, this team should not be trying to really kind of win right now. I think this team needs to kind of make the moves to kind of, win in the future and win kind of next season even. So I think, with the moves at the deadline here, I think it really is kind of important, what this Rangers team kind of does over the next few games here and up until really the deadline as well. And we are still a month and a bit away, so it's not really over just the next kind of 4 or 5 games, but it's over the next kind of, 15 or so games where, what do the Rangers kind of do? And that's kind of what depends on kind of what we could see at the deadline there. And, if the Rangers kind of, let's say, lose, 10 out of the next 15, maybe they are going on a full kind of selling mode because this team is way too far back of a wildcard spot, and we're seeing them really kind of sell off everything possible and then kind of not necessarily tank, but, really shed some players away, some veteran guys, some expiring contracts, all the ones that this team does currently have. Maybe some other guys as well under contract for another season or two, possibly, to really kind of sell off and, getting some young guys as well. That's possible. Although I don't necessarily see that happening. I don't think this team's going to be that bad over the next 15. I'm just kind of saying that what happens over the next, 15 or so games up until the trade deadline is really going to have a big impact on kind of what happens there. And obviously that's kind of, pretty clear. But I just think that it's going to have a pretty big impact on what the future of this team is, because there's a chance that this team kind of doesn't do a whole lot. Maybe, makes one little minor trade, one little kind of minor buying trade, and that's kind of it. And this team goes into the offseason with no extra picks and prospects. Or this team does the kind of smart move, which I kind of want to see happen, where they maybe go out there and maybe make a buying move or two possibly, and go out there and kind of get a decently kind of young guy possibly who's under contract for bidders, an RFA possibly like the Kraken did, getting Capo Kako, something like that. That kind of a buying move I'm okay with. But also going out there and trading away guys like Riley Smith and a Ryan Lindgren, these guys who, you're probably not going to be re-signing, get some assets back in return. And I'm not expecting a second-round pick back for either of them, but can you get back a 4th and a 6th-round pick for Riley Smith, or a 4th-round pick and a decent prospect, or a 5th-round pick and a good prospect or a solid prospect? I mean, can you just get some decent assets back in return for Ryan Lindgren and a Riley Smith? I think you probably can. I mean, obviously, I don't know exactly how much, but I think you could probably get something around, maybe you got a 3rd-round pick possibly and a 6th, or something like that for Riley Smith, something around there. You definitely could get something decent. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there, but you could probably get some decent assets back in return for Riley Smith, a veteran guy who is a playoff performer over his career, a decent depth defenseman, Ryan Lindgren possibly. There are some other guys as well. Maybe Jimmy Vesey could be something enticing for a team, just kind of in a depth role. Maybe an Urho Vakanainen or something like that. Maybe a team wants to pick him up and the Rangers are okay with flipping him. So there are options as well that this team can definitely kind of do to make selling moves to acquire some assets that can be good for the future, which I definitely hope this team does, because especially Lindgren and Riley Smith, I just don't really want to see them re-sign. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So in my opinion, if you can sell them off, get some assets back in return, and even if you want to use those on some players who maybe are under contract for another season or two, are going to be RFAs and under team control for not just this season, I think that could be a fine move for Chris Drury to not just be in a selling mode where he's only selling off assets, but also in kind of buying mode as well. And maybe I'm just kind of spitting out something stupid there, but I just think that's an option for a guy like Chris Drury who, probably optics wise and just kind of from an outside looking in view, probably doesn't want to, be in a full-on kind of selling mode where it looks like he's kind of going into a possible retool / rebuild this upcoming summer. He probably doesn't want to do that. He probably wants to see this team kind of competing, and maybe that's not just him, and it's also James Dolan up top, and that's a whole another kind of thing as well with all the other kind of, push from the top, I'm sure, which there definitely is in the New York market there. I mean, James Dolan is a guy who definitely doesn't want to see this team go back into another rebuild or even retool. He wants to see this team compete. So that's why I kind of wonder how much of a selling mode this Rangers team's even going to be in, if they are, even like, 10 points back, let's say, of a wild card spot come deadline time, which I hope they definitely aren't that far back and probably won't be. But if they are, are the Rangers actually going to be really full-on sellers? I don't really think so. And that's kind of where I would be a little upset possibly if they don't make any kind of selling moves at all and they miss playoffs. That would really suck. But at the end of the day, we'll have to wait and see what happens there, because I can talk as much as I want, but obviously it kind of matters what Chris Drury does at the end of the day. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. It really does help out the channel a ton, as well as don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on the New York Rangers as a whole right now, and kind of what are your thoughts with this team? Do you think they're going to be in kind of a buying mode where they're trying to win and they really are kind of pushing really hard for a playoff spot this season? If they're going to kind of take a more kind of maybe smarter approach and kind of take it more a little laid back and just kind of maybe look a little more towards the future? Let me know your thoughts on this whole kind of team and how you kind of view them right now, because I think it's interesting, because yes, they could push for a playoff spot, but they're also, not in the best position to make the playoffs, and they're not too far back, but there also are quite a few teams that are still in the competition for those just 2 wildcard spots in the Eastern Conference. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a race. There are a lot of teams in it still, so we'll have to wait and see, but it really kind of does depend on what the Rangers do over these next kind of 15 games or so leading up until the trade deadline in early March. Thanks for watching.